Hello Paper Florists, thanks so much for joining me today. So today we are going to work on the Astomeria for our project for the month of October. And we're going to do this one today. It's the one that I posted as a picture on when I made the announcement. And it's primarily white. It's going to be real simple coloring, primarily white with these cute little dots or little slashes on it, and just a little hint of green coloring in it. And to make this, we're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers, wire cutters. This is one I got from Leah, and really love that. You're gonna need some Kai scissors. I use the 5165, and I also use, to cut my bigger pieces, I use this bigger Kai scissors, a little stronger. This is the 5210. For paper, we're going to use the double-sided crepe paper. It's white on white. I like to use this green. This is the 90-gram green from Cartafini and Cartatecnica Rossi. And I really like using this as stem wrap. And then to do the leaves on this project, we're going to do our good old standby of moss and green doublet. For coloring and making the little dots, oops, or you can even see here, making these little dots on it, we're going to, here we go, we're going to use this lavender pen because the coloring on there is so subtle. This is a Tombow these are water-based markers. This is number 623, but you can use anything that you have. You could use watercolor on this. You could use alcohol ink on this. You could, the world is your oyster. Obviously, we're going to need a bit of glue. Got that there. And then for coloring, I'm going to use a little bit of this. This is pearlescent red, and I'm going to use the yellow bright green. I think it is. Yeah, bright yellow green. And so for the coloring, we're just going to add subtleties of color back here on the back of the petals, and maybe a little towards the center of these, and that's pretty much going to be it. So it's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to use some blender brushes. I'm using these two that are small. I think you need to use small with those. You could use, gosh, anything. You could use your regular makeup brushes, and if you don't have pen pastels, you can also use things like stick pastels. You could use watercolor. You could use acrylic paint. The world is your oyster. You can use anything that you like. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is cut a piece of white doublet, a strip of white doublet that is about 2¼ inches tall. So I have a pencil somewhere. There we go. Wow, there we go. I have a pencil, and I'm just going to mark here 2¼ because the T-square, I don't have to worry about it lining up. It'll line up all on its own, just right across here, and set that aside. And this is where I'm going to use the heavy scissors. And you may or may not be able to see the line because I can hardly see it, but it's there. And then these heavy-duty scissors go through. If you have more space than I do, you could use a guillotine if you had a guillotine. As for glue, I'm going to use the Aleene's Tacky Glue. And I love using these little pens, and I also have a regular size bottle here. So the first thing we're going to do, we got our paper cut. We're going to cut, for the wires, we're going to need some 22, 24 gauge white wire. I have a couple of pieces here. And you're going to need 7 stamen for this. And they don't really have like a pistil, they just have the stamens. So I'm just going to cut a couple of pieces that are longer than I need, but it helps to build the stem. So there's 2, 4, 6, that was a little too small, 7, okay? And this is where our needle nose pliers is going to come into action. So we're going to take these in line and get these ready to go on the stem. And basically I'm just going to take, I can move it a little closer here. I'm going to take my needle nose pliers and I'm just going to fold it down once, And I'm going to fold it down one more time. And some of the pictures that you could see when looking up this is sometimes they have really heavy, if you watch Christina's deconstruction, you'll see some of them have a lot of pollen on the tips of them, on their anthers, and some don't. And some of them just may not have any pollen on the anther may not be on there at all. So I'm just going to fold those over, and it's going to create the top to our stamen. And this just goes pretty quickly. Just fold it down, pinch it, and fold it down again, and pinch it. This is kind of the easiest way. You could actually cover these with paper if you wanted to. You could make individual anthers if you wanted to, but we're going for something that's on the simplistic side. And I know you guys are going to just go crazy with this and make them all sorts of beautiful colors. They come in yellows, corals, pinks. I haven't really seen red. The white, I think the white are really stunning. So we're going to start with the white. And then put that one more time. There we go. And you see that creates that end of the stamen. Last one. Lose my scissors here, my pliers. I apologize if I'm shaking a little. I've had, as you probably know, I've had allergies for the past couple of months that have just been terrible to deal with. And sometimes the medication the doctor gives me makes me a little shaky. Okay, so we've got those. And then we're going to, there's a couple of ways you could do this too. You could dip these in glue and then into pen pastel, or you could color them with all kinds of things, but I'm going to stick with using some pen pastels on this. So in that light, we're also going to color these stems a little bit. And if we look at our flower, make it really big, these are actually really white or just pale pink. So I think to get that pale pink color, I'm just going to use a little bit of this red tint, and I'm just going to kind of brush it on these strips of wire I have, just to kind of get the look of pale pink on them. And you don't have to put a lot on it. You'll notice as you go up and down like this, across it, that's when the color will come on. It's not really good going up and down. You're not going to get it on there. And we just want a hint of that pinky kind of color. This bloom goes pretty quickly. There's a lot of parts, but they're not complicated parts. They have some little nuances, and we'll do this in steps. And my ideal for putting color on these, on the tips, let's go back to our, so you can see they're kind of purple, red. So we're going to think about how we're going to do that. Okay, so I've just got hints of pink on this. And now we're going to color these little tips. And I think the best way to do this is just to take a little bit of your glue and just cover this end here. Can you see that? See if I got any glue coming out of there. I do. We're just going to put a little glue right on here. We're going to go ahead and dip that in our, that's pretty. And this works pretty well, and you can just set that aside to dry. And then we'll do this one. And then just rub it in there a little bit. And I hope you saw Christina's deconstruction. I find it really helpful to work on a bloom that you aren't familiar with. To if you can have access to the flower, do a deconstruction. It's a game changer. It really is. Since we're trying to mimic what Mother Nature does, we can learn from her. And she's so generous about telling us how she puts things together, because we could take them apart and put them back together. There. A couple more and we're done. There. Just 2 more. Just a little dab of glue works wonders. Just roll that in there. Get exactly what you're looking for. I guess ideally I could have done these in lavender, but I'm trying to keep the supplies at a minimum, because I know all of you don't have access to all the supplies that some of us do, and you may be new and you don't want to like dive in and spend $1,000 on getting your materials. So we're going to set those aside to dry for now. Then we're going to take our piece of, and I'm going to clean this real quick first, because there's plenty of pan pastel on here from what I did earlier. And I use alcohol, just good, gosh, I'm all over the place. Just good old, plain old alcohol, and works really well for me. Okay, now we're going to start cutting our petals. Now, the 3 inner petals are slim. Let's go back to our piece right here. There we go. Our 3 inner petals are slimmer and have this little point on this edge of them. So let's create those. In order to do that, we're going to make 3 petals about, it's going to be about 3/4 of an inch wide. And I'm just going to cut 3 of them accordion style. Okay, then I'm just going to cut the folds here, so I'll have 3 individual pieces. I find that when making these, it's best not to do more than 1 at a time. It comes out way better. So we're going to, I'm going to come really close to the camera on this, because I think it's going to be hard to explain. So I'm just going to cut a little nib on there, and then we're going to come around and come back down. And we're going to get a small, I think this might be a little wide. Perfect. Okay, there's one. Do the next one. Even that out a little bit. There. Okay, last one. I don't think I have this lined up really well. There. I think that they might be a little on the fat side. So, and we want this to come down like this. Okay. I'm going to kind of fix up this one. It's not really smooth enough for me. There we go. Round that a little more. Okay. And this one's a little fat too. Okay. Okay, so we have our 3. You can see this one has a little different. Didn't really define that little point on it as well as I could have. There we go. There. Just took a little bit. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're going to cut the wider petals, and there's 3 of those, and these are this one, the one behind there, and this one here. So these are going to be probably about 1.25 inches wide. So let's take a look here. Yeah, a good inch, generous inch, 1.25 inches. I think we go for 1.25 inches. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to cut those in 3s. We're done with our paper. Cut our 3 pieces. Okay. Now these are really simple petals to make. In that they're shaped a lot like a dogwood, really. So when we open it up, see that little point there? We're going to, I'm going to come up close here. I'm going to carve out a little here. Well, probably should use a smaller pair of scissors to do that. Okay, now I'll just go in here and make this tighter. You know what? We're not going to do that. We're going to cut one more of these because that's not coming out the way I wanted it to. And I've had students say they were glad that I left my boo-boos in because everybody makes mistakes. So, and it's okay. So we're going to cut this as in our normal modified teardrop. Okay, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to put in a divot similar to the divot that we put in a dogwood. This would be a little, make it round. Okay, 1. Smooth this out just a little. And we very likely might come back in and trim these up a little bit later, which you can do. Yeah. Okay, one more. And we'll cut the divot here. There. Okay. Now for the fun part. I'm going to clean up my space and I'll be right back and we'll start coloring these. Okay, so I'm back. So to come back to my original photo, you can see the dots are here and they start like a lily, like a stargazer lily kind of. They start out smaller here and they get longer as they go towards the end. So we're going to do that first. Excuse me, and I'm going to use this this Tombow watercolor marker, and because we want these to be really subtle. And I think I'm going to use the bullet tip on this rather than, yeah. We could probably actually go a little darker than this too. But I'm going to start with these. And so we're going to start with little dots here. Oh yeah, I do like this. Little dots on the bottom, and then they start turning into little dashes. And then they get longer as we go out, and they're subtle. Remember, dots down here. And then as you come up, they start turning into little dashes. And then they start turning into longer dashes. Can you see over my hand? I know I'm left-handed. Kind of messes people up sometimes. 2. And then down here, dots turning into dashes. And a little longer ones up here. And they don't need to be exactly the same. Okay. Ta-da. Okay, so we've got those done. For the coloring on these, the coloring is very subtle. So we've got just a little hint of green here. And then we can look at the backs have a little bit of that rose on them. It's green down at the bottom. So we're going to start with the back side. And I'm going to use this yellow green. And I got to make sure my brush is clean, which I'm probably not. There we go. That's good. And so we're going to start, we're going to hit just a hint of green. Actually, no, it's not right. We want to hit just a touch of the pink down here on the bottom, just to give it that rosy center look. Okay. Let's do that on all three. I don't like the shape of this one. And you know, that's the joy of what we do, is that we can come in and correct our errors, or if there's, you know, if you're making something that's got a lot of petals and something you don't like about it, you can always come in and fix it. So that's better. So I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to put this a little bit of color down on the bottom of this. We're doing the outer petals first. So I've got my specimen sitting in front of me to look at. Actually, sorry, I'm wrong. These are the inner petal, the inside of the petals, the part facing up. Okay. And then coming back to just referencing, they have just a little green on the very, oops, sorry, wrong ones. Sorry. There we go. They have a little bit of green. The bigger ones, yeah, here have a little bit of green at the top. So I want to be really subtle about that green. And you might even want to wait until you, I keep losing it. Lots of pictures of my puppy. Here we go. So we're working on the bigger ones here. You can see I just have a little bit of green here on the top front, on the inside, and a little bit of green down here at the bottom. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're just going to do this little, just a hint of, I need another brush. Yeah, this one should work. I just wanted to put just a hint of green in there. And I didn't have a clean brush, so you can see what I did. I'm going to do that one again. And you can do that. It's okay. And you should clean your brushes. Do as I say, not as I do. Right? So just got one more. There. And then give it, round that up a little more. There we go. There. Okay, and then we're going to cut our little divot out of here. So I'm going to get a clean brush. Actually, this one has green on it, and I really only want to do that little bit of green here. I mean, it's ever so slight. It's just a hint. I think I have enough green on this little brush just to do what I already have here. There. So wipe off my brush to get anything extra on it and just make that subtle. Okay, so that's the outside, and we're going to do the inside. of these. And on the inside of these, they just have that little bit of green at the top. So we're going to do that on the outside. Sorry, this is the inside. We're doing the outside. We're going to go with this little bit of green that comes up from the bottom. And this is really subtle. Just a little there. And we're going to come in with our a little bit of warmth just in the back here. And this color is so subtle. Give them a little bit of green there too. And it just all blends in really well. Just give them a little. So we can start with the green. Start with the green. You can start with the rosy color. Either one's fine. And then I'm going to add in a touch of rose in here, the red. And I want the green at the bottom. Just to come up the bottom a little bit. I want to just kind of come down a little bit with that red. So it's very subtle coloring. Start with the green first. The green could actually be a little greener, couldn't it? That's too green. There. Have a little more green here. Just doing that little subtle edge there. We're going to come up. I'm going to do the bottom first. Okay, and then we're going to add in just a touch of the red in here. Just give it kind of a. This is our inside. This is our outside. Now, before we move on to coloring the other petals, I want to show you what we're going to do with these because this is a process here. We're going to start to shape these, and we're going to, because I want them to dry with what we're going to do. So I'm going to give them that dimple here, and we're going to cup them down here. And when we're done, after we put them on the stem, we're going to come in and give them a turn outward like that. But we want to make sure, we can do that now, start now. We want to make sure that we get that dimple in there. Okay, so one of the things about these is if you watched Christina's tutorial, you'll know that she pointed out that these outside petals, and I'm sure you're like me, I hope you are anyway, I'm constantly clogging up my glue because I should have it turned upside down in a jar is what I should do. So I'm going to add a little bit of glue right along here. And I'm going to take, this is a 16 or an 18 gauge wire, whatever you have is fine. And I'm going to hold that down and I'm going to roll that over it. Oops, maybe I'm going to roll that over it. Yeah, there we go. There. And then we'll pull that off. My wire won't stick. There we go. Try again. There we go. So we just want to give it a shape. I'm going to pull it off. See, so we have our little rounded piece here. We're just going to set that aside to dry. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to do the divot in the top, the dimple. And we're going to cup it at the bottom. Okay, we can take our large dowel, or I don't even know where I got this, but keep making sure you keep the dimple in there. Then we're going to take and add a little glue here. Do the same thing on all three. With my 18 gauge wire, Actually, I think this might be a 16. Doesn't matter. Whatever works for you. Use a skewer, anything. And I just want it to get to dry like that. So I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just setting that bottom. Do the same thing here. Get the dimple. You can take your larger dowel and just kind of curl it in the middle, curve it out, keeping your dimple all the time. Okay, one more glue. I don't know if I got enough glue on there, but maybe I did. There we go. So you just want that, and it's only like this bottom 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch there. Just that little piece, okay? Now we're gonna add, I'll come back to this one and see what it's like on the inside. These, they have a little warmth in there, and just the greens, tips are green. So we're gonna take the one that we had, just a little, that we used with our red. We're gonna just do a little bit of red here on the bottom, just to add a little warmth to it. And we're gonna take our green, and we're gonna do the green right there. And it's so subtle. I might even use a deeper green here. It's very subtle. There. This one. So green. There we go. Do I have another? Yeah, I can use this brush to brush this in. You can see that. It's not what I wanted to do, but I'll do it anyway. Same thing here. Except that's the outside. There's where the dots are. Come on, Susan, get it together here. You know, I know we see these a lot in the grocery store, but I don't see them in bouquets a lot. And I have to say, I'm not really sure why, because they're really quite beautiful and stately. It's an often overlooked flower. Okay, so in these, we're going to do the same thing in that. Let me see if I can show you this, how they go here. These have like they're curled out on the edges. So we're going to try that. So we're going to cup them in the center here. Give them a good cup. Okay. So they're like that. And we're going to take the back of our scissors and just furl it out. Just give it that. This is a real subtle bloom. So we're going to just give it a nice cupping. I'm going to just curl that out. It took me a while to do these to where it looked kind of like an Astomeria. Okay, so let's clear the decks. And we're going to get our stamen ready to be attached to. These are pretty well dried. And we're going to, this is similar to how I do the stamen on a amaryllis. And I'm going to take, I think I have one here already. I do. You can use a rather thin gauge wire. This is a 20 or a 22 gauge wire. And these are either 24, 26 gauge wires. So I'm going to hold those there for a minute. I'm going to get my green. There's my piece of the green that I love to use for stem wrap. This one. This is like my go-to for stem wrap. And I'm just going to cut off because we're going to need a couple pieces here. It's amazing how this stuff stretches. I mean, it was like this before I stretched it. You see that really small And the stretches, this stuff's amazing. And we're probably going to need about half of this at this juncture. So I'm going to take use my big one here. I'm going to put drops of glue on it, dots of glue. And then I'm going to put a little more here where we're actually going to get these puppies on the stem. So bring them all down so they're the same height. That's good. So I have them laid out flat like this. I'm going to add a little bit of glue in here just for extra insurance. And I'm going to take my wire and just place it on there. Then I'm going to come in and wrap so that they're on there nice and stiff or secure. And also helps to start to build up that bottom bud piece at the bottom, the bulbous one. So these are all kind of laying out. And the one thing in the bloom is they do actually do this. And I'm just going to take my fingers and I'm going to, maybe I'm going to use the back of my scissors. And I'm just going to create that little curve on them that they have in nature. This one's not curved quite as much there. So get it like that. And we're ready to put our petals on. Yahoo! So we're going to just add a little bit of glue here and up this side because we're going to attach these two petals together. Set that aside to dry a minute. And we're going to, And while we're letting that dry for a second, we can come back to our other ones. We're still going to want to give it that. You can use your fingers to make this stick out, or I may have actually come a little farther up than I really wanted to. But that's how we learn, isn't it? Okay. Make sure your dimple's good. Okay. Now, this should be good. I'm just going to make sure that these are nice and cupped and that I've got these curling back really nicely. So it'd be like this. I'm going to put a little glue on here on the bottom. And I'm going to add some, again, we're going to cup this one a little more and curl it, give it a little scissor curl too. Put a little glue on the bottom of that. And we're going to take our stem and we're going to place it right on like that. Just sit it on there and these will come back up a little bit. It's best to let them dry a little tight and then you can open it back up. Then we're just going to take this one, flip it over, and place it exactly opposite of the ones that we just put on there. Okay, I want these all to stay together nicely. So just pinch that. And we'll do some more fine tuning on them after it's assembled. Okay, so when we do these, we know that one of these comes up here, one comes down here, and one comes over here. So we're going to start with that one at the top. And it comes out. So we're going to do this one again from the bottom. So put a little glue here. Might as well glue all of them. Okay, so I'm going to take the first one. I'm going to put it right up the center here. Just like that. I want it to not go on wonky. I'd rather straight like that. And we'll adjust these as we go along. Okay, I'm going to put one on this side. We're going to kind of overlap this. There we go. We'll do the other one. And I find that I can usually get these to stay better if I do it from, the back side. Place them on there like that. So now we're going to just pinch these up. And we're going to come in and shape them later. A little tighter. And you're probably going to want to come in and add, like I want this to be wrapped around there. And then I want to get this on top of it. Right in there. There. That's one. We do the same thing over here. I want to get this to wrap around the stem a little. And I think I'm going to add a little touch of glue in there. So I want this to come in first. And I want this to come along the outside. Just keep working this around a little bit. I just want the ends. Coming right in. There, get a little dot in there. There we go. And once these dry, they'll be way easier to manipulate. There we go. So we're just going to set that aside. And there's our pretty simple little white. And we'll do some more fine tuning when we and these actually should have gone this way, so we'll turn them that way. There we go. And we'll fan these out a little bit. And we're just going to set this aside to dry. For now. And then we'll come in and we'll mess with it because we want to turn this one out too. We'll bring these down. There. So go ahead and make 4 or 5 of these, three to 5. There's usually 3 or 5 on a bloom. Nature doesn't like even numbers. So, and we'll come back and we'll do the foliage. So thanks so much for joining me on the Paper Florist. And I can't wait to see you back when we do the foliage on it. So take care. Don't forget to reach out if you have any questions or you need some help along the way. Thanks so much.